Today I'm going to show you President's Day deals on full-size trucks, but also I'm going to tell you which engines and powertrains I wouldn't touch with the 10-foot pole, even if the deals look amazing. Let's start with Chevy because I believe they have the biggest powertrain issues right now. So the 2026 Silverado 1500 with the Duramax engine, they're doing 1.9, but only for 36 months. That's not really that great of a deal. Or you can do the $7,350 cash back. It's like a cash allowance with trade-in bonuses. That seems to be a little bit better deal to me if you have some money down. Now, this is just my opinion, but with GM, I would only consider in the half tons, the 2.7 liter, I would stay away from the 6.2 liter, the 3 liter diesel. The 5.3 liter has been a little more reliable. However, General Motors is releasing all new engines in the 2027 model year. And I would just wait. If you want a V8, I would personally wait for the new powertrains. That's just my opinion. Next up is the 2026 Silverado Heavy Duty, 3.99% APR for 60 months with 90 days, no payments when you finance with GM Financial. Now, I actually like the 6.6 liter Duramax. I like the 6.6 gasser. Their transmission, at least it's a beefy Allison branded transmission, right? You still got that Allison badge for 2026. It's just a badge, but it is a little bit more beefy than the half-ton transmissions, and you can always up-armor this with the next-gen valve body kit. So I actually don't mind the GM heavy-duty trucks. I think they look nice. You just have to worry about that valve body. The powertrain's pretty solid, though. Next up is the 2026 Ram 1500, 0% APR for 60 months, and then you could do $7,500 cash back, but that only applies to the standard output Hurricane engine. It's also nice to have that 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. That's one of the big reasons why I bought this truck. I actually think the standard output Hurricane or the Hemi with that ZF transmission are one of the most reliable powertrains on the market. They do have some electrical gremlins people complain about, so there is that. But as I've said before, you don't see a lot of Ram 1500s on flatbeds due to like crank bearings, main bearing issues, rod bearing issues. They're usually pretty reliable in the powertrain department. Maybe that's a big reason why they actually offer that 10-year warranty. And then we have the 2026 Ram Heavy Duty trucks. Not a lot to mention here, not anything special. $3,000 total cash allowance on some, but they do still have that 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. So hey, at least they're standing behind their powertrains. All right, next up is the 2026 Toyota Tundra and the 2025. So there's 2.99% for 72 months on the 26 Tundra, which I would probably recommend over the 25. The 25 Tundra is 0% for 60 months, really good deals, but I would personally stay away from the 2025s. I've just seen more engine failures with the 2025s than I have the 26s. So it just feels a little bit better, at least so far. Now, that could be just because the 26s are newer. They don't have as many miles on them. It's probably the case. But if I had to pick between like General Motors 6.2 and the Toyota Tundra twin turbo, I actually think I see a lot more GM 6.2 failures right now than I do 2025 and 2026 Tundras in the Facebook groups and in NHTSA reports. So, I think overall reliability, you're going to have probably fewer electronic issues and other problems with the Tundra than you would something like a GM. Now with Ford, I don't see a lot of deals on the F-150. There's some okay financing deals, but there's just nothing to speak of, not like the other brands. I don't know if it's because Ford just isn't having a problem selling. It could have something to do with Ford just lost $11 billion in Q4 of 2025. And they're trying to just kind of keep things status quo. Maybe they're going to try to push this inventory out that they have. I'll go through some deals and what pricing of all these trucks here in a minute, just to see how they compare. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that Ford didn't really seem to be pushing any deals right now. And overall with Ford, their 2.7 liter EcoBoost, the 3.5 EcoBoost, the 5 liter Coyote, they're all fairly reliable compared to how many they sell. They're not dying like GM 6.2 liter or the 3 liter Duramax. They don't have crankshaft main bearing problems. So they all have that 10-speed weirdness with the valve body, but hey, that's shared between kind of GM and Ford. Ford just seems to be a little bit better about their programming and their valve bodies, and they seem to be a little better about servicing and having parts on hand. Now let's go through some pricing really quick. So something like that 2026 Silverado with the 2.7 Turbo Max, That's going to be about $40,995. So it's okay. Better than 3 years ago. I still think with tariffs, I don't think prices are going to drop much lower than what we see now. I think when people get their tax refunds, you're going to see a lot of this inventory start to move faster. So I actually think President's Day weekend is not a bad time to shop. There's a lot of stock on things, pretty decent prices overall. And everything I'm going to show you here is four-wheel drive. I'm in Colorado. I'm only searching on a 100-mile radius because I know some of the dealers. I don't want to branch way out. There's a lot of shady dealers outside of my state, and I'm not familiar with them, so I can kind of gauge by what I see here whether a dealer's good or not. And really on the HD side for Chevy, not bad deals. I would almost rather look at an HD truck. Jason Samko talks about this on his channel all the time. The HD might be like a better value for sure than the 1500s if you can deal with the ride quality. And with Chevy, you get that IFS up front. I think Samko talked about this in one of his previous videos. This 2026 Silverado, 2500 custom, $53,000, and you get the 6.6 gas. A more reliable 6.6 liter. It's not going to get great mileage, but at least it's reliable. Yeah, you get the HD benefits, better towing capacity, probably going to have better resale value too. Jumping over to the Ram 1500 2026 Bighorn package, pretty common package, and it has the standard output Hurricane, 10-year warranty, 46,286. Not a bad price, not a bad price at all. And this is all, of course, with all the incentives. So you either have to take that financing or get those incentives. Ram HD is not quite as good a value as their 1500s. You're looking at $58,000 for a 2500 Bighorn with the 6.4 liter. And again, I don't know if it's just weird, my area in Colorado, but the Fords just don't seem to be great deals. I see last year's model year 2025 STXs for $46,000. It's not a terrible comparison to maybe a Bighorn package or something on the Chevy side or the SR5 for the Tundra, but these are 2025. And that's the 2.7 liter EcoBoost. I'm just surprised that Ford doesn't really have a lot of better deals around me. I think it is related to their issues with all the money lost last year, and they're probably trying to recoup. And they don't have trouble selling their vehicles, at least around me. A lot of people buy Fords. Maybe that's it. It's just all localized. And the same thing goes for the Ford heavy duties. This is a 26 F250 XLT package with the 7.3 liter Godzilla, $60,000. So they're above Ram and they're above General Motors for their pricing. Could just be because they're selling them. They don't have to discount. Not really sure why. Now Toyota, they actually have some of the better deals right now. Tundra sales, I think, were down 7% last year. So I think Toyota is starting to maybe pay for those mistakes they made with that engine early on. I do see fewer problems in the 26s. I think they're getting it lined out. I think they're better than a lot of GM's offerings. I don't necessarily think they're better than like a Ram Hurricane or a Hemi or something like that. They're probably not any more reliable, probably a little less reliable in the engine department, but $49,000 for a 2025 SR5, a 2026 is $49,000. When you see these prices, it's like, why would you go for the 25 unless you just really need that 0% financing? I would probably go for the 26 all day if you're looking trim for trim. And look, prices have gotten better since when I bought back in like late October. 2026 Tundra Limited, I was looking at that and boy, they wouldn't come down. I couldn't get anyone to come lower than really 60 to 62,000 on this Limited. Now they're selling limiteds for 55,720 listed on cars.com. So I do think Toyota's pushing a little harder right now. And it's not just one limited, as a better price. I mean, there's 55,000, 57,000. So, $3,000 to $5,000 less than what I was seeing at the end of last year. This is why I keep saying I'm not really sure prices are going to go much lower than this, unless we just have some catastrophic economic problem. Before you buy, make sure you do some reliability research. I have thecarguyonline.com. My site, I just pull in NHTSA complaints and recalls. You can go check it out there. Here's a Toyota Tundra 2026. As you can see, you can just drill right down into engine problems and see if anybody has any engine problems. You can select years on the graph and then it will load. As you can see here, here's a 2025 and you can see on the screen, complete engine failure. This was on January 20th. I'm loading all of the complaint data. Every hour I reach out to NHTSA and try to grab the most recent complaint data. So whatever's on this website, should be up to date for you to check out in any brand. Some people ask me, why do I do these videos like I'm promoting new vehicles? I'm not necessarily promoting new vehicles. I just figure if I get in front of people, maybe tell them how I would think through it, what the most reliable powertrains are, and how I would pick something, you're not going to change most people's minds. Once they've made up their mind to buy a brand new vehicle, you can't talk sense into them usually. So the only hope that I think we have is to maybe just guide them to a more reliable experience so that if we vote with our wallets on these new vehicles, maybe we'll start to see change in manufacturers where I never thought I'd buy a Ram, but when they back it with a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty and they maybe have better engines and transmissions than other brands, maybe if I vote with my wallet that way, Toyota will change their behavior. Because I would have bought a Tundra if they were reliable and not spinning main bearings. That was where I was 2 years ago thinking about it. So it's kind of my thought process on this. I know a lot of people wonder why I do these videos. That's why. Hope this helps you out. Thanks for watching.